Okay, great. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Again, thanks for joining us here. We're going to try and keep this right to an hour or less. I know everybody's time is valuable. So, um, as most of you know, we're here to talk about the DGS system project team, its new system of record, and how you guys as client agencies can use it and collaborate and interact with your project managers and request new projects from DGS. So we will use this agenda, which I believe was posted over in your webinar dashboard over there, so you guys can have a copy of it. So we'll go right through this in order, and feel free to speak up while we're going and ask questions. Don't hold them till the end. It's much easier while we're on the same train of thought to go through things. So we're going to start with the basics. So what is Project Team? Project Team is a cloud-based, web-accessed project management and documentation system. It's available anywhere with an internet connection through any browser, any system, any device. So you can use your iPad, your phone, your PC, Mac, Internet Explorer. You can use Chrome, Firefox, whatever you want. You do not need to be behind the VPN or on the DC network. It's you can do it from home. You can do it from wherever. DGS uses Project Team to maintain project documentation and records, as well as there are some built-in workflows and intelligence in the system to help manage the project and interact with the different stakeholders and people on the project team. DGS uses Project Team exclusively. All of the EPMs or executive program managers and the project managers use the system, as well as all of our vendors, mostly first-tier vendors, people that we have contracts with. Not all of their subcontractors are in here, but they should be the vendors should be entering the info for their subcontractors. And now with our new rollout that we're doing, you guys as client agencies will collaborate and use Project Team with us. Access to Project Team, again, it's web-based, so you're just going to have a website address that you go to and log in. If you need access to Project Team to create or request new projects for DGS to implement, you'll send an email to Tiffany Moore for your agency with a list of people that need accounts, as she discussed in the intro training. That's tiffany.moore1@dc.gov, or you can talk with your executive program manager and get them to send us over here at support an email and copy Tiffany, and we'll add you in there. So once we add your account to the system, you'll get an email invitation to finish setup of your account and set your password, and it'll have some instructions right in that email. So watch for that email. The email link within the email expires in 24 hours. So make sure you're paying attention and keeping up on that email. It's not the end of the world. If you miss it, there are ways you can go in and reset your password and get in, but it's much easier if you just set it up when you get that email. There are two types of access to Project Team. One is if you're just in the role for your agency, requesting new projects and handling the budget stuff and the CIP process and the IRB and all those things. We will set that up for you on our end. And the other is project access while projects are active and during the project life cycle. So that's where while the project's ongoing, you'll interact with the project manager and the project team from DGS. You can, for project access to individual active projects, if you need it, just reach out to the DGS project manager for that project, and they'll invite you to that project and set you up in the share group so that you have access to what you need. We'll go right into Project Team now. I'm going to move this over so we can go through basic navigation. So I'll log out to show you guys from the beginning. So when you first click on that link or go to Project Team, you'll see this login page. You'll enter your email address. It's your DC email address, and then whatever password you set up when you finalize your account and hit login. If you miss that link, it expires after 24 hours. you can just enter your DC email address and click forgot your password, and you can go through the steps to reset your password and finish setting up your account that way. Or if you forget your password, you can do the same thing. Just enter your email address and click forgot your password and follow the prompts. If you haven't forgotten your email address, once you enter it here, you just click log in, and it will take you right into Project Team. So this is called the My page. You'll see if you've set up a profile picture for yourself up here, it'll show up there and welcome you back. You can edit your profile here through this button. So when we set up your account, we'll just enter your first and last name and your email address. Everything else you can fill in yourself. The only thing we ask you not to change here is your email address, because that is your login. If you get a new email address and something happens and you need to change that, just reach out and contact us at support, which we'll go through how to do that later, and let us know, and we'll work with you to change your email address. You can add your avatar photo right here. Just click the button and upload a photo. You can also add your signature in here. Some of our documents, you guys as client agencies don't really need to, but there's functionality in the system where I can run, the users can run documents and it'll add the signature automatically if it's set up. So when you're done, just click save. Some other things you'll see right here, this is recent activity. So this will show anything recent that's happened on a project that you have access to. So if you're only working on one project, you'll only see the activity from that one project. Everything that shows up, it has a link to the project, the link directly to the document. It tells you who did it, when they did it, what they did. If you're working on multiple projects and you just want to see recent activity for one project, you can click here and just scroll down and pick the name of that one project in here, and you can see everything that's been done on there. You get back to them just through all projects. Over here, Project Team has action items, which we'll go over a little later, but if the ball is in your court for an action item and it meets these criteria, you'll see a number show up here for it. You can just click on any of these and it'll take you right to those action items. Same with workflows. There are structured workflows in Project Team that route documents for review and approval and things like that. If something is in your court in a workflow or pending you in a workflow, same thing, it'll show up here and you can click on those. These same things are also reflected up here. This is action items, this is workflows, so you get the same kind of menu. These show up in every project and every screen. You can always get to those functions. These are just, a quick shortcut from the My page. Within Project Team, everything is done by project. So up here next to the logo, you'll see a projects drop down. If you click on that, it shows you all the projects that you have access to. And you can also search for projects. So if you have a whole lot of them in there, you don't have to try and scroll through everything. If you wanted to see the Eaton project, you can start typing Eaton and it'll start populating with all the projects that have this combination of letters or numbers or whatever it is that you're searching for. And then you can just click on the project that you want to take you into a project. And then you can always go to a different project just by coming up here and searching for another one or clicking on another one. So most of what we're doing first in our training is going to be in the DGS portfolio project. So I'm going to go ahead and go there. So now that I've clicked on a project name, I'm inside of a project, and you'd always be able to know where you're at just by looking back up here for the project name. So you'll see at the top, there's favorite form types. Everything in Project Team is form-based. So if you're looking for contracts, they're a form. If you're looking to submit a project request, that's a form. Forms are also available over here. You can view all form types, or you can see your favorites over here, or you can search for a form. The easiest thing to do on each project, you have the ability to come up here and edit your favorite forms. And this gives you a list of all forms that are in the system. And you can pick the ones that you want to see up there on your favorite forms list. You can click one, you can click none, you can click all of them, whatever makes sense for you on the project. And then you can just click on the button. You'll see there's another section here that's recently created forms. This is kind of like what's on the My page, but this is project specific. So this is what's recently been created in this project. So you can click on these and it'll take you right to that record. Trying to look at my agenda here. Everything in Project Team is done via sharing. So there are share groups that we set up in the back end, so you won't even have to worry about this, but it helps explain how things work. So everybody in Project Team on every project has a share group that they're a part of that is basically their role on the project. So when you're added to a project, you'll be put in the share group that corresponds to your role. And then Project Team documents and records are shared with share groups. So you'll only be able to see those records that have been shared with you. And if you create records, the only people that'll see those records are people that are in share groups that you have shared the records with. So sharing is a very important concept. So if you're in here and you get access to a project with your project manager and you want to look at contracts and you go to the contracts form and you don't see any contracts, it says no contracts exist on this project, reach out to your project manager from DGS and say, hey, can you share the contracts with me? Because it just means, you know, they haven't been shared with your share group so you can see them yet. Alternately, when you're creating a record, which there aren't too many as a client agency that you're going to be creating, just a couple. But when you do that, you have to remember when you save and share to select all the share groups that should see that document. And when you do a workflow and you initiate that workflow, that'll also automatically share with people that should see it per the workflow. So it's two different ways to do that one. Over here on the left, you have the navigation bar. So each of these icons takes you to a different section. So this is the project home screen. Anytime you hit this project and the home icon, it'll take you back to this screen. The forms, as I said, you know, everything in here is forms. You can look at all the available forms. If you want to see mayoral initiatives, you can click on that and you'll see any mayoral initiatives forms you have access. So this is where you get around to the different records in the system. If you haven't put your favorites up here and just click on them. Any files in the system that have been uploaded to the file manager, you'll see in files over here. This is not something that we generally use. Our files are generally attached as attachments to a record, which we'll go over shortly. So you really don't need to go look for files in here. If you're looking for a specific contract file or something like that, you'd want to go to the form for contracts, and then at the bottom of the contract associated with that file, you'll find a copy of the physical contract file. So that's much easier than just navigating through a file server. Reports, when we get into running reports, you'll be able to access the reports through here. The directory, this shows who has access to the project. So you'll see different things. If it says invite, this person was invited to the project or was added to the project but hasn't been invited or declined the invitation. If you see connected, that means that person has accepted the invitation. They're collaborating on the project. This is set up by company. So you'll see there are a number of companies that have access to these things. So you don't have to worry about setting this up or anything like that. We handle all of that. But if you have a question about whether or not somebody from your group has access to this, you can come in and see if they're in the directory as having access to the project. And there's also a project calendar down here. Some of the project managers are using this, but we don't generally use it for anything internally. So that's, if you guys are going to use that on a project, just talk to your project manager and they'll tell you how it's being used. So within the forms, anytime you click on a form, so I've used that contract example, we'll do project requests actually. So in project requests, this is a form. Anytime you open up a form, it's going to open up what's called the log view. So these are all the project requests that are in here. You'll just see the ones that have been shared with you. As an admin, I have access to everything, so I see everything. But these have basic information on on that specific record. You can configure your log to show different fields by clicking on this ellipsis button up here and just hitting configure log. And this is like the editing your favorite forms. If you want to see who the owner agency contact is for all your stuff and what their email is, you can, add those fields, and this will repopulate. Sometimes it takes a second. It'll repopulate and reconfigure, and now it's added in those names. You can print the log view at any time just by clicking print. It'll actually give you the option to save it as a file rather than printing it on a printer, but it's a good way to get it. And if you want to go access the actual record, you just click on the link. So if you wanted to look at this record, this is how you open it. So when you open a record, it shows you who it's been shared with, and you can hover over anybody's name and see when, who they are, where they're from, and you see this one says never viewed document, or last viewed 10/26/902. You can see who's seen it and who hasn't, and also who's actually able to see it at any time. If you're missing somebody out of this list, you can hit the share button and you can send it to their share group or share it with them, and they'll be able to see it. The records themselves will show up down here in the details section. So you'll be able to go through whatever is part of that record and read it, look at it. If you keep scrolling down, here's the workflow section where you would initiate a workflow if you're submitting something, or if you want to see the status of a workflow that's in progress, you can click the arrow and it'll open up that workflow and tell you who started it, whose court it's in now, and any other steps that are pending for it will show up below it. So it's a good way to check the status of something. And then this is the attachments section I was talking about here. You can drag and drop files if you need to attach them. It's just as easy as literally grabbing them off your desktop with your left mouse button and dragging them over here and letting go of the mouse button. They'll upload. And any attachments that are here that have been uploaded will show up between the word attachments and the upload screen. And you'll be able to click on them and open them. And as we go further on, you'll see how that works. So this is your basic record. You'll see there's action items up here from this record. If you needed somebody in your group or your agency to look at this and see what they thought and give you a comment, you can go here and click new. And then you can give it a subject. You can assign the action item to somebody if they're in the system. You can give it a due date, and you can give it some notes, and then you can save and share, and that'll send it to that person, and you'll have a trackable, recordable record that shows you asked somebody to do something, and they can respond to it when they do it. The other thing we have is comments. You guys, comments are visible to everybody that can see the record, so be very careful if you're working in an active project and the general contractor and architect and engineer all have access to these records, and you're putting comments in here they shouldn't see. Don't use this for that. You can use an action item and just send it to the person, or just call them or send an email, or the client agency input form, which we'll go over shortly. So activity is another good tab. For any record, you can see anything that's happened on that record from the time it was created moving forward. It tells you who it was, when it was, and what it was that was done. There's a lot of good information in here. And then there's another section called reference links. So you can reference any record in Project Team to any other record. So as you guys learned in your intro class, there's a record that once you guys create this project request called the project statement, that's run via merge template. When we create that record and save it, it's going to automatically link to the project statement here. And so you can click right over to view that document that was created. And from within that record for that document, you can click right back to where you were at and get right back to your other record. And again, these things are on every form, every record. These are not just based on the project request. Does anybody have any questions on basic navigation or basic functionality before we move on? Okay. We'll keep going then. Support, we'll move back over here. So support for project team, your first line of support is your EPM or DGS project manager. So your EPM is your executive program manager. So for those of you that work with BOLA, it would be BOLA, or ALAM if you're public safety. It's the PM's boss that you're used to dealing with. That's your executive program manager. Or if it's an active project, your project manager. If they don't know the answer, or it's something that you can't get an answer for, you can always reach out to dgs.projectteam@dc.gov. That's my team. We answer use questions, support questions, things like that. How do I do this? What am I supposed to do? Things that your PM should usually be able to answer, but if they can't, you can reach out to us. Or if there's an issue, reach out to us. If you have a technical issue, your login doesn't work, you're getting error messages, things don't load, something that has to do with the system itself, then there is www.projectteam. Oh, sorry, it's not written in here. There's one called support at Project Team. We'll probably add that into here. So if you click on your name up here, there's email support. That'll take you to the tech support team at Project Team itself. So don't use this for use issues, but technical support issues, you can use that. The other one is DGS has a website that has all their reference materials posted. It's the same place you signed up for this class, projectteam.com/DGS. When you go there, this is where you signed up for the class. We'll be posting training videos. There are some on here already. We have some other updates coming. And then we have what's called quick reference guides, or QRGs. So these are reference manuals that are done by form or function. So the layout of these QRGs is by user. So this first one is general use, everyone. It's kind of geared more towards DGS, but it does have basic navigation, sharing, the things that affect everybody. And then we go into vendor use, and these are for use by all vendors. And then we break down specific things that specific vendors use, AEs, construction managers, general contractors. Then we have the client agency section, which is really for your stuff. So we're about to go through how you request a new project. You'd be able to come in here at any time and see the most recent version of the step-by-step instructions on how to request a new project. So while you're filling out that project request form, you can have a copy of this. It's got screenshots of every step. It's got lots of good notes. So it's a good guide. It's rather than having to go through a whole manual and figure out where you're at, each of these is targeted exactly to the form that you're using. We'll also be going over client agency input, because that's the other big client agency form. So again, you've got a step-by-step guide with pictures on how to use the client agency input form. And then we have stuff for DGS capital construction team, that's PMs and EPMs, and then DGS budget and finance and administrators. So your focus is really going to be on these things. If you're curious about what somebody else has to do, if you're looking at a contract and you want to know what's supposed to be in that contract, you can always click on one of the other manuals, quick reference guides. Contracts are the responsibility of DGS project managers. So you could click on this and you could see what's supposed to be in a field or something like that, or one of the vendor records. So we've structured it so it's pretty easy to find everything and you don't have to hunt through a bunch of stuff. Any questions on support or how to get support before I move on to requesting new projects?
Good.
Go ahead, Quinn.
No, I don't have anything. I was just saying something. You good?
Okay, cool. All right, so the next one is how to request a new project. So, as I was saying earlier, everything requesting new projects is done in the DGS portfolio project. So you'll see the first step in your manual, your quick reference guide says log into project team, go to the DGS portfolio project. So once you're in here, either through forms or if you've already set it up, your favorite forms, you're going to click on project requests. And as I said earlier, you'll go in the log view and you'll see requests. So if you need to edit a request that you've already put in here that you're already working on, you can click on it. You can use the edit button. That'll open the form back up for you to edit it, change whatever you need, hit save when you're done, add attachments if you need to, initiate the workflow, whatever it is you're doing. But up here, you'll see there's also a new button. So if you're requesting a new project that doesn't exist from the start, you click on new. And this is what you saw in the introduction class. So you'd enter the name of the project or what you'd like the project to be called. If you have available funding, this project number is the funding project number. So the YY1SC, you know, any of those things. If it already has a funding code, go ahead and put the funding code here. The buildings, you're always going to use add existing. You'll never do create new. So you'll just add existing, and you can search. We've linked to Archibus for DGS, so all of the buildings that are in Archibus for the district are in here. You can search by building name, you can search by street address, whatever you want. So if I started typing 1301 in here, it's going to start pulling up anything with 1301 anywhere in it. So you see there's BET Networks has 1301 W Street Northeast. I could select that as my building location. You can select multiple building locations if the project has multiple locations. You see I searched and it narrowed it down to these two and I selected them. I can also come back here and I can do, you know, a different search without clicking any save or add or anything. And now I can add another set of buildings in here if I want, using a bit of bandwidth. So it's a little slow to pick up right now, but it's got to catch up with me. There we go. And then if I click add, it remembers that I had selected those two other buildings through the search, and it still added this last one. If you select one that you don't need, you can just click on the little arrow and remove it. It'll ask you if you really want. So pretty flexible. If your building does not show up in the search and you can't find it, when you're entering the rest of this information we'll get to, just put a note down here in the description at the end that says building not found, and give the address, or if it's a new location that you're purchasing or new building altogether for DC, just put what it is down here, and that'll prompt us to work with Archibus to get it in the system, and we'll still be able to have a record of it in the request. So don't panic. You can just leave this blank if you can't find it. So owner agency is a drop-down list. I think we have every owner agency that we deal with in here. If for some reason you can't find your agency, go ahead and reach out to that dgs.project team at dc.gov. It's about a 2-minute process for us to add another agency in here, and then you just have to refresh your screen. So don't feel like it's a big thing. We'll add you, but I don't think any are missing. So it is alphabetical by your agency code. So you could just pick whatever it is. If you are in here and you start typing in the field, it will start narrowing it down. So if I wanted GAO or GA0, you see as I type, it's narrowing it down. So I don't have to scroll through the list. You do have to select this from the dropdown. You cannot type in this field and hit save. So it will narrow the search list, but not allow you to type things that aren't in the list. Owner agency contact. This is going to pull up a list of all the names who have access to this project in project team. If the person who is the agency contact for your agency does not work in project team, you can type their name here, even if it's not in the list. The list makes it convenient to select somebody, but if I want to pick somebody who's, I gotta find somebody who's not in there, you know, there is no Robert, I can still type that and save it. Owner agency contact email, so whoever you put here, just put their email here, phone number for them here. If you've identified a project number, you have available funding, enter the amount of funding that's available here. If there's no funding available, just leave it blank. Related projects, most of you won't have related projects, but in the case that you do, you would put that related project here. So we do a lot of schools and community or rec centers that are co-located at the same building and get renovated at the same time. So they would note that, if this was a school request, and they would note that there is also a recreation center for DPR, they put the name of that project here. Construction start and move out date. These are the dates that you want to start your construction or move out of your facility, and end your construction and move into your facility. They are designed to give the team at DGS, when you start working with them, an idea of the time frame or constraints that you're looking for on the project. If you have your project planned out and you want the initiation of the project to start 10/1, and you want the final project to be over on 9/30 of the next year, you can put in those full dates. These don't link to anything. These are just for reference, so you can use them for the full project. But if you don't know, and you just know that you want to move out on 9/30 and you got to move back in on 12/1, put those in there. You do have to select them from a calendar, but everything here is clickable. So you can change the year, you can change the month. It's all, you can go way back if you want. So you want to start in 1970 on your project, feel free. Oops. So project objectives, this is what you're trying to get with your project. This is the purpose of the project. It's not the scope. It's not why you have to do the project. It's what your intent is. A lot of our rec centers are, due to increasing youth populations in the neighborhood, they need more access to recreational facilities, things like that. So they're trying to expand the access to use in the Northeast neighborhoods, or something to that effect. Project scope and description, this is designed to be as much as you know about what you want. So if you know you need 37 bathrooms and 14 toilets and all that, feel free to put it here, but it's really more looking for, we want to renovate the facility, the entire facility, 2 floors of the facility. We want to add an addition to house another 25 staff. A lot of our schools and rec centers, we want to renovate the school, add 100,000 square foot addition, put a new athletic field and a new pool, things like that. So it's really designed to get the big chunks of the project. So don't feel like you need to know every bit of the scope. Just put in what you're looking for as far as scope. Renovate the facility, do an addition, build a new facility, something like that. But make sure you think about all the parts that go to it. Make sure you're including that athletic field or that playground or that tennis court, not just the facility. Justification of need. This is why this project is important and why you need to do it. This is really up to you as the owner agency to figure out what it is that makes this project need to happen. You've got extra staff, your lease is up, whatever it is. This is the extent of what you guys will fill out as client agency users. At this point, you would go back and just double check that everything's right. You would hit save and share, and you would share it with your client agency share group, and you would save it with your EPM for DGS, their share group. I'm not going to be able to do that here because I didn't fill it out and I'm in the live project, so I don't want to create a junk record. But what I'll do is I'll go back to an existing one. So once you save and share, this is what you'll see. It will pop up with the record all populated, and you'll see information down here through justification of need. These fields below that will all be blank. At this point, you'd come back, you'd go down to the bottom, you'd attach any supporting documentation. We have projects that are driven by lawsuits sometimes. You'd want to attach a copy of the lawsuit, or not the whole lawsuit, but the judgment that says you have to do something. Or for schools, they have PACE legislation. They'll put a copy of the PACE legislation in there, things like that. So once you have the top fields filled out and any supporting documentation attached, then you'd start the workflow. And when you start the workflow, it's just going to pop up workflows that you have access to. So most of them are dependent upon your agency. So you're going to look for the one that says submit project request and then your agency. So if you're with OAG, you'd select this one. And again, I'm in a live record, so I'm not going to do it. Once you select the workflow that applies, you probably will only see one. But once you hit the one that applies and check the box, you just hit start workflow, and that sends it to your EPM for your program with DGS. At that point, your EPM will review what you have in here, and they will contact you. And that process you guys are used to going through with your EPMs and your DGS contacts remains the same. They'll call you, you guys will work together. They'll help you come through here and finalize the objectives. They'll help you finalize the description, justification of need, if they need, help you work with that if need be. They'll fill out the rest of these fields. They'll work with you to figure out what mayoral initiatives have been met by the project. We have all of the mayor's 9 initiatives that are published in here. They can just select them. They'll put notes about how you're meeting them. They'll go through the same thing with the city comprehensive plan objectives. We have all 13 of them in here. So nobody has to think about it. You just go through and read them and click the ones that apply. Again, your EPM will do this with you or on behalf of you. Fill out notes on the comp plan objectives. They'll work with you to determine any constraints or notes. The building has to remain occupied and open during the project. You absolutely have to be back in the facility by December 31st, whatever it is. And they'll work with you to determine any ongoing operating impact. If you're building a new facility, you're going to need more utility costs. There's going to be more security costs. There's going to be new computers, new phones, things like that you guys may not, that you want to note in here, but they'll work with you to determine that. This goes over as part of the budget process. And then the EPM will work with you to develop a budget and an estimate and things like that. We have a form that the EPM will fill out that breaks down the budget the way we need it broken down. They'll import that created. And then they'll work with you here to create the funding request. So this is your agency ask at CIP process. It's broken down however you guys want it to be broken down. We can have 1 line in here. You can have 50 lines in here. So it's, I want construction money first year. I want $1 million, or I want it in 2021 in phase 4 for construction, and it needs to be capital, and I want $1 million, whatever it is. So they'll work with you to put that in. And then once you've worked with them and that process is complete, everything in here is right. You all agree this is the project. This is what it's based on. The EPM will come in and they will run that project statement that you saw in the introduction class. And it just takes all the info that's in here.
I got a quick question, John.
Uh-huh.
So for where I see the owner agency contact, would that be the PM's point of contact, or would that be alarms? I'm just speaking on public safety, just trying to see how these projects would get down to the project managers.
So the owner agency contact is always going to be the person from the client agency. The implementing agency contact, hang on, I'll scroll down in a second. Here's the project statement that this spits out, and this is what goes to the IRB for review, and this is what becomes the first project record. This is everybody agreeing on what the project entails, what was budgeted, what that budget was based on, and all the details for it. It does include the budget breakdown. It does include the funding request. Okay, so that's what'll go out to everybody. So Quinn, for your question, implementing agency would be the DGS people down here. This would usually be the EPM, but if it's somebody else, you can put Alam or somebody else in there if it needs to be, and then their contact info. And then when the project manager is known, at some point before DGS has to create the project in the system, after it's funded and all of that, somebody would come back in here and name the project manager here before submitting the request.
Right. Okay. I understand.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. So at this point, after the project statement is created, DGS does its thing. It goes to the IRB. You guys have your normal CIP BRT budget review process, all of that happens the same. We're just providing information for that. Your EPM will continue to work with that. You'll work with the budget people from DGS, all the normal stuff. And then DGS budget, you don't have to worry about this, but DGS budget group actually tracks every one of these projects as they go through the budget process. So you'll see these are for old projects that already went through the budget process, but that project request we just filled out would be referenced here, so it would have the information from that request. Then what was asked for in the request, what the mayor gave in the mayor's budget, what council gave in the council budget, and then what was finally allotted to the process at the end of the CIP, or allotted to the project at the end of the CIP. All of that would be tracked here, and then at this point, when it's got a funding allotment, that's when it becomes a real project. Then we create it in our system, and the project starts with planning and getting an AE on board and a contractor and all that stuff. Then that part of the project life cycle starts, and this information from the allotment is transferred over into that project and becomes part of the project record itself. Any questions on that so far? And I do realize most of the questions that you guys have are going to come from when you actually start getting in here and doing this and requesting new projects. It's all very simple. You guys can see it's just filling in some fields and saving and sharing, but you know, the nuances come out when you do it. So don't feel like you have to answer everything now or remember everything now. You'll have your QRG and you'll have support to reach out to when you get into it. Okay, so that is it for you guys that are only guys and gals that are only creating or requesting new projects. For those of you that are working as agency contacts during active projects, once the project is all funded and it's in the system, same as you got to the DGS portfolio, you just find your project that you're working in, and again, reach out to your project manager to get invited. Then when you're in there, that's when you can come in and you can start looking around at the records and collaborating and seeing everything. So as we talked about earlier, everything's forms. So if you're the project manager on the Eaton Elementary School modernization project, you want to come in here, you want to see drawings. You know, I think you guys saw most of this or some of this stuff during the introduction class, but you'd be able to come in and click on all the drawing records. You'd be able to come in and look at contracts that are in the system. You know, if you want to see what was the swing space contract and who did that go to, you'd be able to pull that up and read through it and see how much it was, see how, you know, what change orders were on it. If you need to look at a submittal, you know, you can come in here and look at submittals. What toilets are they putting in my building? I'm curious, you know. What color is the wallpaper in the bathroom? You know, whatever it is, you can come in here, you can find that record. As part of that collaboration with DGS, I showed you guys this in the introduction class too, but we'll get more into it. There is a client agency input form. So this is where you'd come in and this is where you would create the subject. So again, as I said in the introduction class, this is designed so that you as the client can interact with your PM officially and get information, request things, request to change the budget, request to change the scope, request to add stuff, request, you know, copies of things like that you can't find. Again, not designed to replace emails. If you want to see a particular drawing and you're not sure which one to look at, feel free to pick up the phone or send an email. Don't feel like you have to fill out this form. But if you want to say, hey, you know, I want to add $1 million to this project and I want you to build me a parking area out back, by all means, fill this out and send it to them so there's a record. So you type the subject, enter the date that you're creating the record, you know, pick your agency out of all the different agencies. Who is it? Again, you can type if the person isn't here, but usually it's you requesting it, so you'll pick your own name. What type of request is it? you know, different things here. These are what it's intended to be used for. If there's something that isn't here, let us know. We can add it. Not a big deal. If it's a review request, you know, needs to be approved or rejected. If you get this from your PM, your PM says, take a look at the toilet submittal and let me know if you're okay with that color on the toilet, that you get this form sent to you. You can say, yep, I approve that color on the toilet, and put notes down here. Whoever submits this originally can say, hey, I need a response on this by such and such date. When you respond to it, or when the PM responds to it, if it comes from you, they can say, hey, I responded to it on this date. Here's who gave the response. Here's what the response is. Is there a cost impact? You know, and again, this is more for the PM side. They can let you know cost, schedule, impact, anything like that. And when this is all done, either of you can close it out. If it's your request and you feel satisfied that it's been responded to, you can come in here, mark it closed, so it's done. You can also, once you've done all this and you save it, it is going to show up as a record. There aren't any in here for me to look at, but I think we have some in a training project. You'll get the same thing you did that I showed you with the project requests, where you will actually be able to do attachments and workflows and things like that. Oops, I'm looking up the wrong thing. So within here, there are workflows set up. So down here, you'll see this one was client agency input, DGS to client agency. There's another workflow that's client agency to DGS. So both ways have their workflow. So make sure you start the right one. You can add the attachments like I showed you on the rest of it. You can do comments, because this is not going to be visible to the vendors unless somebody makes a mistake and shares it with them. This will just be between you and the PM and the PM DGS staff. There are some auto share rules in here for DGS. When you share things with the DGS user or they share it with you, we have internal rules that are going to automatically share it with, like, the auditor, and which is a share group, not a person. The legal group, you know, the EPM, things like that. So don't be alarmed when you share it with just your project manager and you see 22 people up here. They're all DGS users. But you can do comments in here, things like that. If this client agency input is your PM asking you to review a set of drawings, they should come in here and add existing reference link, and they can reference, I think our drawings, yeah, they can reference right to those drawings. And then when you're in here reading the request, you'll be able to click right on those drawings and go back and forth. Same thing when you send a request over to to DGS, you can say, hey, you know, can I have more information on this toilet? You know, I don't like this color. Can you give me the color chart so I can pick another one? You know, and you can link right to that submittal on that toilet or whatever it is. If you need action items, so say you get this request and it comes to you, but it's really somebody else in your budget department that needs to deal with it. If they're using Project Team with you, you can send an action item to them for them to take a look at this before you respond to it. You can send it up to your supervisor. If they have access to the system, your supervisor can give you insight before you respond, things like that. Any questions on use during the project? Excellent. So the next thing we have on the agenda is reports and dashboards. So within each project, you'll be able to click on reports. Since client agency use is new, we do not have a lot of client agency reports in here yet. We're going to be reaching out and having some discussions with our client agencies for what reports they would like to see and dashboards they would like to see to give you guys some tailored stuff for yourself. But you'll be able to run all of it through this My Company Access and standard reports. So right now there's a project finances report that we run as part of a quarterly report. And then there's the weekly project update. This weekly project update is probably most of what you guys would need as a client agency. So this gives you something to run that shows, you know, the finances on the project, the basic information about the project. We don't have a schedule in here, but normally it would have these dates automatically populated, but it's a training project, so there's no schedule. Financial risk, this is open potential change orders, so you know what might be at stake on your project. And then there's some other information that populates on here. Again, training project, so we don't have it filled out in the system. But you'd be able to see the description and what's in progress and, you know, other pertinent information, things like that. You can export it as a PDF just by clicking the button here. It'll create the PDF. You just click the little download link up here at the top and either open it with Acrobat or save it, either one. And it's just a copy of the report. So, and again, we'll have more in here for you. If there's something you absolutely are looking through the system, you're like, I really, really, really would like to see a report on this, go ahead and send the request to your EPM or your project manager and just include dgs.projectteam@dc.gov, and we'll, you know, work together and see if it's something we can do and get for you as soon as possible, or if it's something that'll benefit lots of client agencies and something we should really do. We'll open up that discussion. Reports are not instantaneous for us to create. So, you know, you can't just request, hey, I got a budget hearing this afternoon and I need this report showing this stuff. There's no way we're going to be able to do that. Some of these reports can take a few days to create or a week, sometimes longer if it's really, really full of a lot of information, because we also go through and test them before we send them out. So it's not an instant process, but feel free to reach out to us and we'll try and work with you on what we can do. So that sums up our training for this. Does anybody have any questions